Hello, my beautiful friends. This is Jason Feemster, or as many of you follow me know me as FT_Hustler, short for the full-time hustler. I'm coming to you live from my front porch. I'm going to start kind of a video series, jump on the bandwagon of everybody else's making series and recording themselves, and also add to my own blog that I'm kind of half-ass started, and add a vlog series to it. I'm going to title it The Front Porch Philosophy with the Full-Time Hustler. And I'm the full-time hustler. What does that mean? What does full-time hustler means? It just means I'm always hustling. Doesn't mean any criminal in whatever implication you may get. But anyway, so today, to start, I want to talk about introducing the session of, or the topic of, these riots that are going on and the confusion I'm seeing on both sides. For those that haven't followed me for more than 2 days, I am a self-described bleeding heart libertarian. Read, that means, what you need to hear in that is, I have no friends. 5% or so of the population votes like I do. So therefore, anytime I say something political, 95% of the people want to jump in the sections and tell me how ignorant and wrong I am. That's default, but I'm okay with that. I don't need anyone else to subscribe to my beliefs, and I'm here to sell nothing. No one needs to. I'm not here to want anyone to vote libertarian. I wish more would. Actually, I'll take that back. I do want more to vote. I would like to win someday, and create my society. But I'm okay with people not agreeing and not having an independent thought, more so than half the nation, similar to half the nation. So, this topic of police brutality and racism, what better topic to start there, especially when you have an accent like mine? Why not talk racism? Because the minute I open my mouth, their brain fills in adjectives that would paint me a certain way. So I guess I'll start by defining who I am, or introducing who I am as it relates to this topic. Despite my accent, or despite whatever you may have seen or be led to have believed, I was raised in North Carolina, which in a lot of ways is still fighting the Civil War. And I had a black stepfather. I had the fortune of having a black stepfather that taught me a lot of wisdom. He taught me, how love knows no color. He taught me how to stand up, and speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. He taught me a lot of things. Unfortunately, he recently passed away due to diabetes. And that was a loss. It was obviously like anybody would take their stepfather. They knew their whole. It's not just stepfather. It's anytime someone loses someone that is a foundation or a pillar or rock to your existence. It hurts. Not black, white. We've all lost people that are important to us and had a role. But otherwise, I went to what would be considered a redneck school, raised in that environment. I went to a county where I think we had more cows and chickens in population than people, and the majority of those people were white, and they use Duke mayonnaise. And I was raised to appreciate John Deere for an engineering standpoint, because I have a long line of, some of you have physicians as parents, and I have a long line of my ancestor roots are they're farmers. We know how to work the land, and that's what we've. I guess you could say Alabama, that song that the stock market fell, but we were so poor we couldn't tell. Well, that's kind of how we were raised, but I didn't know I was poor because no one told me. But I do know that I can say in my ancestors, we are resilient. If we have any trait, it's resiliency. You can't stomp us out, beat us out, shoot us out. We're just that. Whatever the South represents, it will always be there, because that is what it does. It survives and keeps going. I'm not saying that, and I'm not necessarily talking about the Confederacy, and as it relates to racism. So I was raised in that environment, so I got to see a very dualistic sense, or got to experience a very real side of racism. I saw it. I lived it. I was raised by my father's side, and who again lived in a very all white, one way, what would be arguably considered a very outdated way of thinking, but nonetheless, it's very prevalent mindset. And then, on the other hand, I have a mother who lived in another area, who was married to a black man. That was a great man, just happened to be black. And I can tell you that one time I was visiting her. I just got my license, and I had my very first car was a 1989 Jaguar XJ6. And I worked my ass off bagging groceries at Food Line to pay for that car. You ever paid for a Jaguar by buying groceries, it'll make you appreciate a Jaguar more than just the Jaguar itself. But I can tell you Jaguar's a good brand, or it was then before Ford bought it. I can't attest to it because I was 16 years old, and I drove that car like a 16-year-old is known to drive, and yet that car had 180,000 miles on when I bought it. And I can tell you it took everything I could give it, and it never broke down. So I appreciate Jaguar for that. Shout out, little plug for y'all. But I was leaving my mom's house, white kid in a black neighborhood, all black neighborhood, other than my mother. And I'm leaving. Of course, everybody knows who I am because everybody's family there. I mean, it may be the projects or the hood or the whatever affiliation you want to put to it, but everybody knows each other like they do in the rural area where my father lived. Everybody still knows it's community. So they knew I was, I wasn't just some random white kid driving a Jaguar through the neighborhood. They knew where I was going. Hell, they'd see my car parked out front, and I grew up with these people. And anyway, so I left, and this is one of the first times I went there on my own, because, I just got my license. And I left, and a police officer pulled me over. And what he said was, he didn't tell me why I pulled. He didn't say, do you know what you did? Do you know why I pulled you? What he said was, why are you in this side of town? And that question is just coming out the gate caught me off guard. I didn't realize the significance of your right to remain silent. So I answered his question, and I was like, I was here visiting my mother. And he said, what is your mother doing here? And obviously at 16, I didn't have the wherewithal to understand the depth of what he's asking, nor how to articulate an accurate answer that didn't convey fear, confusion, or whatsoever, or things of those sorts, feelings of those sorts. Nonetheless, I left that. I was not ticketed with anything. I was harassed a little bit, again, for no other than just leaving my mother's house. And it stuck with me. That experience stuck with me. Speed up to date, recently, about 2 years ago, and as it relates to current events of today, my little brother, who I love and adore like a little brother, and I don't know how to say it. I guess I'll just come out and say it. He was convicted of a crime, and that crime was he shot a police officer. I know, a little black kid in a no-name majority black or predominantly black area shooting a cop. I know that's such a novel idea, especially now. We've never heard of, black people shooting cops. We've never heard of such things. Well, he did it like a year and a half, 2 years ago. Of course, my paternal side of the family, they were all emailing me and messaging me like, hey, is this your brother? Is this your brother? Because it was in the paper. And everybody, that was the talk of the town for that moment. And I don't deny it. I'm not embarrassed of my brother. I mean, he was a young kid on the wrong side of the tracks with for statistically speaking, less than 1% of 1% of people will ever leave. Or there's basically hope is all but died. So what do? They get involved with the gangs, and I forget which ones, Bloods or Crips, whichever one's on the East Coast. That was in Statesville, North Carolina at the time. That was the one he was growing up with, and it was many years in the making. But nonetheless, it culminated when he was about freshly 18. He shot a cop. And now he's probably, as a mixed kid in our Dale County court system, he's not going to get any favors, so I'll probably be visiting my little brother for a long time behind the glass. So again, despite my accent, that is my intimate, from the horse's mouth, background, if you will, resume as it relates to racism. I felt it. I've seen it. I know what it's like when I walk with my brother in the mall in a metropolitan as big as Charlotte, North Carolina. I know the looks I get, and I know it doesn't. People don't, when they hear my brother talk and they hear my accent, because obviously we weren't raised in the same household. I picked up a different accent, but though he has a North Carolinian accent too, I know how people look at me, and you may not have ever been looked at like that, but I was looked at like that in mass. It's confusion. They got to stare because they don't know it. It's something they've never seen. But anyway, to the black people, I want to speak to the black community. I want to speak to you directly. I feel your pain. I feel your struggle. I've listened as a lyricist, as a person who gives a lot of attention and a lot of thought to words, which is why I have never done a video blog like this before, because I have to think and really think about the words I use. I've listened to I was introduced by way of my stepfather to lyrics of like Tupac and many of his sort. Of course, my stepfather went way back. He was more into Motown. He was more into what I would call your old school R&B. B.B. King, the originals. But what I hear, and black people and black music has especially mastered it. You sing about the struggle. If you listen to any rap, and I'm not talking about that chitty chitty bang bang, look at my gold necklace. I'm not talking about some ego standing up, bragging. I'm talking about actual lyrics. The majority of rap, or the heart of rap, and the culture of black music is singing about how the struggle is motherfucking real. And in the days of slavery, the only way to get through those cotton fields is to sing Sweet Low Sweet Chariot, and to feel the collective unconsciousness of when 10 people are singing it together, and you feel that your suffering is heard and felt by another soul. And in that, just in singing that song and another one, and that, what music can all do, it's the language that can transcend all cultures and demographics. That's what music's done. And I think the black community does a very good job at singing about real shit, not I gotta go on a girl, I gotta get a date, or some just frivolous things. If you listen to a lot of black culture's music, even of the different genres, it's singing about some really hard things. Because the black community, I dare say, next to the Jews, second place. Not that this is something you want to rank on, but y'all have had a lot of suffering, and y'all have taken it head on. And I will tell you, I respect you for that. I will give you the, hey, for that I admire, and I will always look up to the whole community, because y'all have taken and continually take a damn beating, whether pretty much everything. But I want to look you in the face and as a peer, and I want to humbly ask you, or to look yourself in the mirror and say that I dare postulate that the problem with the black community has always been your inability to appreciate the power of assembly. I believe the suffering of 1,000 black community residents is fought 1,000 different ways. You will never win a war until you unify and fight it on a single front. Until then, you will be the laughing stock of every other culture. And the source is not the other cultures or their hatred or their ability to exploit your weaknesses. It's your weakness, and you need to look internal. That is, you need to assemble and get together and unify and get a single front voice and say enough is enough. For hundreds of years, thousands even, we have been the laughing stock of everybody else, and we have been everybody else's slaves. Enough of that. It's time to break the cycle, and it's time to break the chains. But only the black community can do that by unifying and getting a single voice. There's a reason they wanted Martin Luther King dead, is because he started to unify. He was doing a better job than I think many others before him have done, and many others have since tried and failed. They don't unify. It's fragmented because the suffering is so vast. The suffering felt by the black community is so vast and so deep, it's hard to make one single front. And I understand that. I don't envy you, or I don't want to trade places with you, because I don't want that problem. That's a hell of a problem to have, but nonetheless, it is your problem. And I know that you pray to the same God I do for the majority, and if you need divine miracles, you know where to look. and because that's what it's going to take. To break the chains that have faced the black community, you are going to need no less than a divine miracle, because no human on this earth is going to give it to you singularly. So I understand that when police do things to your people, and you feel that pain, and that mother buries that child again, or that heroin epidemic grabs your child, and he gets caught up in the gangs, and I know that struggle is so deep. And when I look at a lot of black grandmothers and mothers at those funerals and fathers, my soul shatters into 1,000 pieces when I make eye contact and my soul sees where their soul is. Again, I don't want the problems they have. But if you were to ever overcome this, you have to understand you got to police your own. Rioting and looting otherwise innocent businesses is not helping anybody's cause. That is ignorant and immature, and any intelligent being that is 1% intelligent will admit that robbing Target to get a 50-inch TV because George Floyd was killed by a police officer, I don't even know how you tie those together. Philosophically, logically, psychologically, I don't think anybody's trying to. You need to police your own. Because why? The other side, it's so easily to point the finger and say, well, look what they're doing. So now your suffering is not heard. How can you expect anyone to listen and truly feel it the way I think I feel it? And I don't want to feel it any deeper. The pain that I can see that y'all have and y'all experience. How do you want anybody else to even give you the ear if you're robbing TVs? And you're destroying businesses that are otherwise innocent. Let the innocent remain innocent and treat them accordingly. Your argument is against the Rockefellers and the powers that be. That is your enemy. That is where we need to be going. We need a single front, because the enemy you face is very powerful. That's why you've been suppressed for so long. And that's why they can continually kill you in the streets. Or the recent artist, I will not bring up his name, but who was shot in broad daylight, who was starting to shed some light on some very powerful things. And they shot him dead in broad daylight and got away with it. And that's why. Because they do not fear your retaliation. Make that change. But understand who your enemy is. Your enemy is not Target. Your enemy is not the small business down the street. I understand that you probably don't have a 50-inch TV, and if you don't, then there are other means to get a TV than to steal it. You can never steal something and claim superiority unless, even in the Bible it's hard to overcome that unless when the Bible talks about giving the hungry person who steals your food, it's talking to the person they stole from. It's asking them to give mercy. It's never justifying the act of stealing. And I don't think that food is synonymous with electronic TVs and HD TVs. So let's not blur the lines too much. And I need not speak of faith, because I've been to many. My best friend in high school was fortunately, unfortunately, a black guy, and they called us in the predominantly white school I went to. I mentioned earlier, they called us salt and pepper in high school. He ended up joining the Marine Corps with me on the buddy program. Shout out to Chad McClooney. I see you, brother. Yeah, you're always right here. Your pain is my pain. So get unified. Now, I want to speak to my side now, or to what would be argued my side. For those that want to easily use the weakness of the others, which is the others being the rioters and the looters, and they're argued that they're predominantly black. You want to use their weaknesses, which is that they're rioting and they're looting and they're stealing and they're robbing. Understand that doesn't, okay, you can critique that their pain is not being handled correctly, that robbing a store isn't the most accurate thing to do. But you shouldn't ignore that they have a reason to be rioting. They have pain that you may or may not have never even understand the depth of, nor envy. And anyone that understands it would not wish it upon their enemy. So it's not something I tell you to go run out and try to experience firsthand. But don't discount their experience. You can critique how they riot and know they're not doing the smartest of things. I think we should start with burning the IRS, not our neighbors or communities, electronic shop. I think we should start with the IRS, then move to the Capitol building and burn both of them down. But until I can get, a unified effort or an army behind me, I don't think that's going to happen. We'll continue to look like idiots. But and that's why we're so evilly manipulated by our masters, because we are idiots, arguably speaking. We are, both sides. We're easily manipulated. But let's speak to this police immunity. I was in the Marine Corps, and I could tell you how I was treated, or how I treated terrorists, and how I had to treat them when they threw the white flag. And if I'm able to suppress them in that circumstance, because I knew then that if I didn't do everything right, and even sometimes when I did, I would have to face persecution, and a 37-page investigation would have to be done. But yet police, just because somebody robbed a store, the logic that the other side is using is, well, he robbed a store, so therefore police are authorized to do anything. Let me say this very clearly. The police, nor Trump, nor Obama for that matter, are the Messiah or God incarnate. They are all fallible. The police have done very wrong things, and that is all really at the start. You got to start to at least admit that. There is an escalation of force being seen in our current state of affairs that is not justified, regardless of what the other party and how they're handling their pain. It's their pain to handle. It's not for you to critique. You haven't buried a son. You don't have a brother in jail. You don't know their struggle, and until you start there, just sitting on the sidelines critiquing how they handle it, that's just it. You're sitting on the sidelines critiquing how a player involved is handling it or making plays. Helicopter piloting, if you will. The police are authoritarians. They are instruments to enforce the state's law. The state, I am not individually against any individual police officer. I am against the organization or the entity. Hold on. I am against the organization that they represent and the power that it's become. That is the state. The state is very powerful, and it is too powerful. It is so powerful that black men can die in the street, and the accusers, their defense is they don't like how the victims respond. That's the depth of the logic. That's not right. That's wrong. A man is dead. A mother lost a child. Whether he was, I'm not fully in support of George Floyd's details on how it came to be, and he was involved in criminal activity and then stood and waited on the police. That sounds a little fishy, but nonetheless, I wish death upon nobody. And the mother did not deserve to lose a son, regardless of what rioter responds to that event with stealing TVs. We all need to come together, my friends. The right, you need to stop acting like your party is God incarnate and that you are above refute. You are above sinful nature. The left, and to the black community specifically, police your own. Unify. Stop this million different initiatives in a million different directions. It's not going anywhere. It's not worked for thousands of years. Why is it going to work all of a sudden? You think you're going to take down the entire system that is the United States with this kind of chaos? I can tell you in Fallujah, which was the D-Day, I would say, of Iraq, the difference with the Marines were handling Al-Qaeda at the time, wave after wave after wave after wave after wave. Numbers have never been an issue fighting in a Marine Corps battle. You know why? Because we're organized. Our enemies are not. So to the left, I tell you, look to the Marine Corps if you want to know how to fight or the rules of war and to know you need to organize. To the right, I would say stop being so pretentious. Your leaders, and no politician is God himself or herself or itself. They are people, and they are flawed, and they have done bad things that they need to repent and they need to apologize for. And their victims need to feel that apology. But we can start with just saying, brother, I know you struggle. I feel your struggle is my struggle. Your happiness is my happiness. We are in this together. Let's start there. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to the comments. Be sure to comment, other, thoughts, concerns, but any other topics of interest. I really like depth. I don't like surface layer. That's why I talk about such things. Once you get to, I hope through the series of these, people in the digital world will get to know me to the same level that those that have seen me in the physical world, and that is I really do value depth. The greatest insult you can, or the fastest way you can make me upset is asking me how's the weather. I don't give a fuck how the weather is. If you want to know, go outside. It's a subjective question. Just go outside. Look up, feel it, taste it. I don't know. Use your senses. Anyway, let me know some other topics you want to talk about. Again, I'm trying to start a series. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see where this goes. Called Front Porch Philosophy with the Full-Time Hustler. Thanks, everybody, again. Bye-bye.